Sir, we have incoming projectiles on intercept course with New Geneva. Impact in 4 minutes. The communications officer's voice cracked as he delivered the words that would change everything. Commander Marcus Thorne gripped the railing of Luna Station's observation deck, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The blue marble that had cradled humanity for millennia now hung like a target in the crosshairs of an empire that had ruled the galaxy since before his grandfather was born. How many people are still planet-side? 8 million in the immediate impact zone, sir. Evacuation transports are running at maximum capacity, but we're not going to get everyone out in time. Thorne closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of those numbers settle in his chest like lead. When he opened them again, his jaw was set with the kind of determination that had earned him command of humanity's outer defense perimeter at 35. Get me President Kane on secure channel. Priority Alpha. The screen flickered to life, revealing Kane's weathered face in the emergency bunker beneath Geneva. The irony wasn't lost on either man. The president was speaking from the very city about to be erased from existence. Kane's voice carried the exhaustion of a man who had spent 72 hours staring at impossible choices. Marcus, tell me you have something resembling good news. Mr. President, Admiral Vex's ultimatum expires in 3 minutes. Are we surrendering? Kane's laugh held no humor. Surrender to what? Economic slavery for the next 3 centuries? They want our asteroid mining rights, our manufacturing capacity, and 80% of our agricultural output. They're not asking us to surrender, Marcus. They're asking us to slowly starve to death while enriching their empire. The first kinetic projectile struck New Geneva with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The city center disappeared in a column of fire and debris that could be seen from Luna Station without magnification. Thorne watched 12 generations of human achievement vaporize in seconds, taking 4 million lives with it. The communications array went silent as the shockwave rolled outward, toppling buildings like children's toys. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Reeves from his position at the sensor station. They actually did it. Thorne's voice remained steady despite the tremor in his hands. Mr. President, are you still there? Kane's image flickered back online from a secondary location. Blood trickled from a cut above his left eye, but his voice was stronger now, fueled by rage rather than despair. I'm here, Marcus, and I'm watching my home burn. How's that for an answer to your question about surrender? The second strike hit Mumbai's spaceport complex with surgical precision, eliminating the largest cargo hub in human space. 3 million more lives snuffed out to make a point about the cost of defiance. Thorne could smell the acrid smoke drifting through Luna Station's air recyclers as debris clouds expanded across Earth's atmosphere. The taste of ash coated his tongue, mixing with the metallic fear that had settled in his mouth. Sir, incoming transmission from the Hegemony Fleet, reported the communications officer. Audio only. Put it through. Admiral Vex's voice carried the cold authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. His words were precise, each syllable calculated for maximum psychological impact. Commander Thorne, you are witnessing the consequences of resistance to hegemony economic policy. Your species has 48 hours to comply with trade renegotiation terms. Failure to accept our conditions will result in systematic elimination of your remaining settlements until total societal collapse is achieved. Thorne activated his own transmission array, knowing that every word would be recorded and analyzed by both sides. Admiral Vex, this is Commander Marcus Thorne, United Earth Defense Command. I have a message for your coalition. Proceed. Go to hell. The channel went silent for several seconds before Vex's response came through with barely controlled anger. Commander, you have just condemned millions of your people to death for the sake of pride. No, Admiral. You did that when you decided to murder civilians to make a point about profit margins. Thorne's voice carried across Luna Station's command center, and every officer present felt the steel in his words. You want to play economics with human lives? Let's see how profitable this becomes for your empire. The third strike obliterated Ceres' agricultural complex, taking 5 million colonists and the largest food production facility in the outer system. The expanding fireball reflected off Luna Station's observation windows, casting dancing shadows across Thorne's face as he absorbed the magnitude of their losses. The smell of smoke was stronger now, carried by atmospheric currents that would circle Earth for weeks. President Kane's voice cut through the aftermath. "Marcus, I'm authorizing Economic Protocol 7. Make them pay for every life they've taken." "Understood, Mr. President. What's our official position on the ultimatum?" "Tell the galaxy we're considering their terms. Let them think we're beaten while we figure out how to cut their throats." Kane's words carried the bitter resolve of a leader who had just watched his species cross the line from peace into war. "How many ships do our intelligence reports say they have in total?" Lieutenant Commander Davies looked up from his analysis station, sweat beading on his forehead. 6,000 warships across their entire fleet, sir. We have 400 combat-ready vessels. And their economic structure? Complex interdependencies, sir. The coalition requires constant resource flows to maintain stability between member species. Military campaigns are expensive, especially prolonged ones that disrupt trade routes. Thorne nodded slowly, the beginnings of a strategy forming in his mind. The aliens had just made their first mistake. They had shown him their method of control relied on fear rather than occupation. Fear could be turned into anger, and anger could be weaponized. "Mr. President, they've given us 48 hours to respond. I recommend we use every minute of that time." "What did you have in mind, Commander?" "They want to play economics, sir. Let's show them what happens when you corner an entire species with nothing left to lose." "They think we're considering surrender," President Kane said, his voice echoing through the secure bunker beneath what remained of Geneva. The acrid smell of smoke still drifted through the air filtration system, a constant reminder of the 12 million lives lost 3 days ago. "Good, let them keep thinking that while we cut their supply lines to pieces." Commander Thorne stood before a wall-sized display showing trade routes that crisscrossed human space like arteries. Each glowing line represented commerce that had flowed freely for decades until the hegemony decided to strangle humanity's economy. Now those same routes would become weapons. Economic Protocol 7 is fully operational, Mr. President. Every legitimate cargo shipment has been rerouted through neutral intermediaries on Kepler Station and the Centauri Freeport. On paper, we're complying with their embargo. And off the books? That's where it gets interesting. Thorne's finger traced a series of red markers scattered across the display. Intelligence Division has been tracking hegemony cargo movements. For 6 months, Admiral Vex's people move resources on a schedule so precise you could set chronometers by it. Raw materials from subject worlds flow to manufacturing centers. Finished goods flow back to coalition members. It's beautiful in its efficiency. Kane studied the patterns with the intensity of a man whose species' survival depended on understanding every detail. What happens when we disrupt those flows? We're about to find out. Captain Rodriguez launched the first interdiction mission 4 hours ago. The image on screen shifted to show a converted mining vessel, its hull bristling with improvised weapons systems. Captain Elena Rodriguez's voice crackled through the speakers as her ship closed on a hegemony cargo convoy near the Proxima system. Contact established. 3 freighters, 2 escort vessels. Beginning approach vector. Thorne watched the tactical display with the satisfaction of a chess player who had just discovered his opponent's weakness. The escorts were powerful enough to destroy any single human warship, but they were positioned to defend against direct assault, not the surgical strike Rodriguez was about to deliver. Her converted miner accelerated past the convoy's flank, its cargo bay doors opening to release a cloud of magnetic mines. "This is Captain Rodriguez to Hegemony Convoy. You are carrying industrial components requisitioned from the Vorthan Republic. Those components were manufactured using forced labor quotas imposed on civilian populations. We are confiscating this cargo in the name of economic justice." The explosions that followed sent shockwaves through more than just local space. Rodriguez's ship disappeared into hyperspace before the escorts could respond, leaving 3 empty freighters drifting among debris that had once represented a month's production from an entire star system. Within hours, similar scenes played out across a dozen systems. Human raiders struck with surgical precision, targeting cargo vessels while avoiding direct confrontation with hegemony warships. Each successful interdiction sent ripples through the alien empire's economic network, creating shortages that forced production delays and resource reallocation. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from Admiral Vex," reported the communications officer. Kane's expression hardened. "Put him through." Vex's image materialized with barely contained rage radiating from his alien features. "President Kane, your compliance period has expired, yet instead of surrender, you engage in piracy against legitimate commerce. Admiral, we're simply exercising our right to inspect cargo moving through territories we consider disputed. If your convoys carried proper documentation and fair trade agreements, there would be no issues. You destroyed 17 cargo vessels in the past 72 hours. Kane's smile held no warmth. "Interesting. I thought those were just tragic accidents during routine inspections. Perhaps your ships should invest in better safety protocols." Vex's voice dropped to a growl that sent chills through everyone listening. "You are forcing me to divert military assets to escort duty. This will not end well for your species." "Then perhaps you should reconsider the economic terms that necessitated these inspections in the first place." The channel closed, leaving Kane and Thorne alone with the taste of victory and the knowledge that they had just escalated beyond any hope of peaceful resolution. "How long before the escorts impact their operations?" Kane asked. Thorne pulled up new intelligence reports, each one confirming their strategy's effectiveness. "Every warship assigned to convoy protection is one less vessel available for offensive operations. More importantly, our operatives at neutral trading stations report increasing tension between coalition members. The Krillian Syndicate is questioning resource allocation priorities. The Vorthon Republic is demanding compensation for lost cargo. And the Nexari Collective? Growing impatient with military expenditures that haven't produced results." Thorne's voice carried the satisfaction of watching an enemy's unity crumble. "Agent Harrison reports overhearing heated arguments between coalition representatives at the Kepler Station Trade Summit next week." Kane leaned forward, sensing opportunity. "Can we get someone inside that meeting?" "Already in progress, sir. Harrison has established deep cover as a trade coordinator. He'll be in position to record everything." The next 3 weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of economic warfare. Human raiders struck supply convoys with increasing precision, always targeting resources bound for military production facilities. Each successful mission triggered shortages that forced hegemony commanders to delay fleet deployments and cancel training exercises. The psychological impact proved even more valuable than the economic damage. Alien crews began demanding escort protection for routine cargo runs, transforming simple supply missions into complex military operations that consumed resources and personnel. Fear spread through their commercial networks as captains reported human vessels appearing without warning, striking with surgical precision, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Lieutenant Commander Davies monitored the cascade effects from Luna Station's intelligence center, tracking every delayed shipment and canceled contract. "Sir, we're seeing 18% reduction in hegemony trade revenues across the affected sectors. Their manufacturing centers are operating at 60% capacity due to material shortages." Thorne nodded grimly, knowing that each percentage point represented pressure building within the alien coalition. "What about internal communications?" "Intercepted transmissions indicate increasing friction between member species. The Krillians are threatening to reduce their military contributions unless trade revenues improve. The Vorthons are demanding priority protection for their cargo routes." "And Admiral Vex?" Davies consulted his reports with visible satisfaction. Under increasing pressure from coalition leadership to resolve the situation quickly, his superiors are questioning the cost-effectiveness of the human campaign. Kane's voice carried through the secure channel from his bunker, weighted with the exhaustion of a leader carrying impossible burdens. "Marcus, how long can we maintain this pressure?" "As long as necessary, Mr. President, but I suspect we won't have to wait much longer. Agent Harrison's intelligence from Kepler Station should tell us exactly how close they are to breaking point." The answer came sooner than expected, delivered in Harrison's coded transmission that would change the course of the war. "Package secured. Contents exceed expectations. Recommend immediate analysis." Agent Harrison's hands shook as he sealed the audio recording device into a diplomatic pouch marked with Centauri Freeport credentials. The 3-hour meeting he had just witnessed would either save humanity or condemn them all to extinction. The taste of recycled air and alien pheromones lingered in his mouth as he made his way through Kepler Station's crowded commercial district, every nerve alert for signs of pursuit. The recording reached Luna Station 18 hours later, delivered by a merchant captain who asked no questions and expected no answers. Commander Thorne listened to the alien voices with growing amazement, each word confirming what he had hoped but barely dared to believe. "The human situation has become untenable," came the translated voice of Finance Minister Korath of the Krillian Syndicate. 18% revenue reduction across 6 months. Our military expenditures have increased 40%, while our production capacity continues to decline. Defense Coordinator. Vex's response carried barely controlled frustration. "The humans will be crushed within 30 days. I have authorization to deploy additional fleet assets." "With what resources?" the Vorthan Republic's Trade Commissioner Nexus interrupted. "Every warship you assign to convoy escort is costing us more than the cargo they protect. We're spending 3 credits to save 1 credit's worth of materials." Thorne paused the recording, savoring the moment. After months of surgical strikes and careful pressure, the alien coalition was doing exactly what he had hoped, turning on each other. He restarted the playback, listening to 6 hours of increasingly heated arguments between species that had maintained unity for 3 centuries. President Kane's image appeared on the secure channel, transmitted from his relocated command center in the Australian underground. The bags under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent balancing diplomacy with warfare. "Marcus, please tell me that recording contains what I think it does." "Better than we could have hoped, Mr. President. The coalition is fracturing along economic lines. 3 major members are questioning the cost-effectiveness of military action against us. They're trapped by their own doctrine. They can't afford to appear weak by negotiating, but continuing the campaign is bankrupting them." Kane allowed himself a rare smile. "How do we exploit this?" Thorne activated a new display showing hegemony financial infrastructure across 12 star systems. Each node represented a critical piece of their economic network: commodity exchanges, trade coordination centers, resource distribution hubs. "Operation Market Crash, sir. We hit their financial infrastructure simultaneously across multiple systems, create supply chain chaos that prevents efficient resource distribution." Targets: financial centers on Rigel P, Rime, Vega Station, the Procyon Trade Hub, and 9 others. Instead of hitting individual cargo ships, we eliminate their ability to coordinate trade between systems, turn their entire economy into a communication breakdown. The scale of the proposed operation took Kane's breath away. 12 simultaneous strikes across that much space would require coordination beyond anything humanity had attempted. Can we pull it off? Agent Harrison's recordings gave us something invaluable: complete schedules of when their economic ministers will be present at each location. We can target the financial infrastructure and the people who run it in coordinated strikes. Lieutenant Commander Davies looked up from his analysis station, his face pale with the magnitude of what they were planning. "Sir, the intelligence indicates this isn't just about economics anymore. The recording includes discussion of something called the Nexari Collective's Final Solution Protocol for dealing with resistant species." The temperature in the command center seemed to drop several degrees. Kane's voice carried the weight of species survival. "Meaning?" "Complete extermination, sir. They're debating whether to abandon economic control in favor of total genocide. The vote was close. 5 coalition members in favor, 4 opposed. They're planning another vote in 30 days. Thorne felt ice settle in his stomach. Operation Market Crash had just transformed from economic warfare to a desperate race against extinction. Mr. President, we need authorization immediately if we wait for their next vote. Authorized. Do whatever it takes, Marcus. How long do you need for preparation? 72 hours to position assets, sir. The strikes need to happen simultaneously, or they'll reinforce the remaining targets. The next 3 days blurred together in a frenzy of preparation that would have been impossible without the intelligence networks they had spent months developing. Human agents at a dozen neutral stations coordinated supply drops and tactical intelligence. Converted civilian vessels moved into position under the cover of legitimate commercial traffic. Deep cover operatives confirmed target locations and security protocols. Captain Rodriguez led the strike team assigned to Rigel Prime's financial center, her converted mining vessel now carrying enough explosives to level a city block. Her voice carried through the secure channel as her team approached the target. Commodities exchange confirmed. Security is minimal. They never expected anyone to target economic infrastructure. Similar reports came from 11 other strike teams as they moved into position around their assigned targets. The synchronized attack would either cripple the hegemony's ability to coordinate their economy or provoke them into the genocidal response humanity could not survive. All teams report ready, announced Davies from his coordination station. Targets confirmed, security assessments complete, escape routes planned. Thorne looked at the tactical display showing 12 human strike teams positioned to deliver simultaneous blows to the alien empire's financial heart. The taste of adrenaline mixed with fear filled his mouth as he realized they were about to cross a line from which there could be no return. Mr. President, all teams standing by for your authorization. Kane's voice carried through the speakers with absolute resolve. Execute Operation Market Crash. Make them pay for every life they took. The explosions began exactly at 800 Universal Standard Time, coordinated across 12 systems with precision that would have impressed the aliens they were fighting. Trade centers erupted, in flames as decades of financial records vanished in electromagnetic pulses. Commodity exchanges collapsed as their computer networks were systematically destroyed. Resource coordination hubs went dark as communication arrays were severed with surgical precision. Within 6 hours, the hegemony's ability to efficiently distribute resources across their empire had been reduced to chaos. Captain Rodriguez's final transmission from Rigel Prime captured the scope of their success. Financial center is completely destroyed. Estimated 6 months minimum for reconstruction. Secondary explosions indicate critical system failures throughout their network infrastructure. The alien response came faster than expected. Admiral Vex's image appeared on all human communication channels, his rage barely contained by diplomatic protocol. President Kane, you have just committed an act of war against the economic stability of 12 star systems. This aggression will be met with overwhelming force. Kane's reply was broadcast across human space, ensuring every citizen heard their leader's response to the alien threat. Admiral Vex, we have simply demonstrated the cost of attempting to economically strangle an entire species. If your coalition wishes to discuss reasonable trade terms, we remain open to negotiation. There will be no negotiation. I am assembling 2/3 of our battle fleet for a decisive strike against your homeworld. Your species will be extinct within the month. The channel closed, leaving humanity to face the consequences of their economic victory. They had wounded the alien empire, but now they would face its full military might in a battle that would determine whether human defiance had bought them freedom or hastened their extinction. The smell of welding torches and molten metal filled Luna Station's converted mining bays as Commander Thorne walked through WH. It had once been asteroid processing facilities. 6 months of around-the-clock construction had transformed the moon's industrial core into humanity's last hope. Automated weapons platforms rolled off production lines where ore refineries once stood. The acrid taste of manufacturing chemicals coated his throat, but the sound of human determination echoed through every corridor. "Final count, sir," reported Chief Engineer Martinez, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. 12,000 defensive platforms deployed throughout the solar system. Each one carries enough firepower to cripple a hegemony cruiser. We've turned every asteroid, every piece of space debris larger than a shuttle into a potential weapon. Thorne nodded, studying the tactical display that showed their improvised fortress surrounding Earth like a spider's web of death. The platforms were crude compared to alien technology, but they had been built with one advantage the hegemony couldn't match: intimate knowledge of local space conditions and gravitational anomalies that could turn physics into a weapon. "Admiral Vex's fleet?" he asked. 4,000 vessels, sir. The largest armada in recorded history. They'll be in weapons range in 18 hours. The magnitude of what was coming settled in Thorne's chest like a stone. 4,000 alien warships against humanity's defensive network and 400 combat vessels. The mathematics were simple and terrifying, but mathematics hadn't accounted for human ingenuity born from desperation. President Kane's image flickered to life on the command screen, transmitted from the deep bunker that had become humanity's nerve center. The weight of leading a species on the brink of extinction had carved new lines in his face, but his voice carried unwavering resolve. "Marcus, are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be, Mr. President. Every civilian has been evacuated to the outer Colo, Nice. Earth's orbit belongs to us now. And if we lose..." Thorne's response came without hesitation. "Then we make sure they remember the price of trying to exterminate humanity." The first alien scouts appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly 18 hours later, their ships moving in perfect formation that spoke of centuries of military dominance. Admiral Vex's flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed any human vessel, led the armada toward Earth with deliberate, overwhelming confidence. Vex's transmission reached Luna Station with crystalline clarity. "Commander Thorne, you are outnumbered 10-1. Surrender now, and I will make your species' extinction swift and painless." Thorne activated the reply channel, his voice carrying to every human vessel in the solar system. "Admiral Vex, you've spent the last year learning that humanity doesn't surrender. Today, you're going to learn that we don't die easily either." The battle began with Vex's standard tactical doctrine: massive frontal assault designed to overwhelm defenders through sheer firepower. Wave after wave of alien cruisers accelerated toward Earth's orbit, their weapons charging with energy signatures that painted space in deadly auroras. But they were flying into a trap that had taken 6 months to prepare. The first alien vessels struck the outer defense perimeter near Jupiter's orbit, expecting to sweep aside whatever resistance humanity could mount. Instead, they flew into a coordinated crossfire from defensive platforms hidden among the gas giant's moons. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as automated weapons systems targeted alien ships with precision guided by human operators who knew every gravitational current and magnetic field in their home system. "Enemy losses at 12% and climbing," reported Lieutenant Davies from his sensor station. "They're maintaining formation, but their advance has slowed." Thorne watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The aliens were powerful, but they were fighting on humanity's terms now, in space where every human commander had spent years learning to navigate currents and conditions that were foreign to the invaders. The second day of battle brought Admiral Vex's personal involvement as he led a concentrated assault against the Mars defense grid. His flagship's weapons carved through human defensive positions like a scythe, but each advance cost him ships as hidden platforms emerged from asteroid fields and debris clouds to strike at his flanks. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communications array as her squadron engaged alien destroyers near the asteroid belt. "They're learning our tactics, sir, adapting to our defensive positions, but they're paying for every kilometer with blood." By the third day, the alien advance had reached Earth's outer orbital zone, but Vex's perfect formation had dissolved into desperate individual engagements as human defenders used their knowledge of local space to fragment the enemy fleet. The taste of victory mixed with the bitter knowledge that humanity was bleeding out just as quickly as their enemies. "Sir, enemy casualties at 47%, Davies reported. But we've lost 60% of our defensive platforms and half our mobile fleet." The turning point came during the fourth day's dawn, as Admiral Vex's flagship attempted to break through the final defensive line protecting Earth. Thorn had saved humanity's most powerful weapon for this moment, a coordinated strike by every remaining human vessel, timed to coincide with a gravitational slingshot maneuver around Earth's moon that would give them velocity the alien commander couldn't match. "All vessels, this is Commander Thorn. Execute Operation Earthrise. Everything we have, everything we are, goes into the sun, is strike." The human fleet accelerated past Luna's gravitational well with suicidal determination, their combined firepower focused on Vex's flagship like a spear thrust at the heart of the alien armada. The dreadnought's shields flared and died under the concentrated assault, its hull rupturing as secondary explosions tore through critical systems. Admiral Vex's final transmission carried disbelief and growing panic. "All vessels, maintain formation, continue the assault." But his subordinates had been watching their fleet die for 4 days, and the sight of their admiral's flagship burning like a torch in Earth's orbit broke whatever discipline remained. Individual ship commanders began withdrawing without orders, their political instincts overriding military protocol as they calculated the personal cost of continued failure. "This is Fleet Commander Korath to all hegemony vessels. Admiral Vex is no longer in command. I am ordering general withdrawal to minimum safe distance for negotiations." The alien fleet's collapse happened with stunning swiftness. Ships that had maintained perfect formation for 4 days suddenly scattered like startled birds, their commanders desperately seeking to distance themselves from a campaign that had become politically toxic. Thorn's voice cut through the chaos with absolute authority. "Fleet Commander Korath, this is Commander Marcus Thorn. You have 30 minutes to clear human space entirely, or we resume hostilities." "Commander Thorn, surely we can negotiate. You had 300 years to negotiate fairly. You chose to murder civilians instead. 30 minutes. The alien withdrawal began immediately, but the damage to their empire had already been done. News of Admiral Vex's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than the retreating ships could carry it, carrying with it proof that the hegemony could be beaten, that our power was not absolute. President Kane's transmission reached Thorn as the last alien vessel disappeared beyond the solar system's edge. "Marcus, you did it. You actually did it." Thorn looked out at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, floating among the wreckage of human defensive positions that had held just long enough. The cost had been enormous, but humanity had survived. More than that, they had won. "Mr. President, we all did it. Every person who refused to surrender, every engineer who built those platforms, every pilot who flew into impossible odds. This was never about one man or one battle. This was about proving that freedom is worth any price." The silence that followed carried the weight of 12 million dead and the promise of billions who would live free because of their sacrifice. 18 months after the Battle of Earth's solar system, Commander Marcus Thorn stood in what had once been Admiral Vex's private conference chamber aboard the former hegemony flagship Dominion. The ship now served as headquarters for the Independent Trade Consortium, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The metallic walls that had once echoed with plans for human extinction now hosted negotiations for galactic economic freedom. "The Kepler Mining Collective is requesting membership," reported Director Harrison, formerly Agent Harrison, as he placed another application on the growing pile. "That brings us to 47 systems seeking independence from hegemony economic control. 17 more have submitted preliminary inquiries." The smell of fresh coffee, real Earth coffee, not the synthetic substitutes, filled the chamber as Thorne reviewed each application with the careful attention of someone who understood that every decision could prevent or start a war. The transformation from military commander to diplomatic coordinator hadn't been easy by Tess. But watching former slave worlds achieve economic independence made every late night worth the effort. President Kane's image appeared on the secure transmission screen, broadcast from his new office in the rebuilt Geneva complex. The reconstruction had taken a year, but the city now stood as a symbol of human resilience rather than alien brutality. Marcus, how are the Vorthons responding to the mining rights negotiations? Better than expected, Mr. President. Former Trade Commissioner Nexus has been surprisingly reasonable since the coalition's collapse. Turns out, when you're not operating under threat of economic strangulation, most species prefer mutually beneficial agreements to extractive colonialism. Kane's laugh carried relief mixed with exhaustion, leading humanity through reconstruction while simultaneously midwifing the birth of a new galactic order had aged him visibly, but his voice held the satisfaction of a man watching his vision become reality. What about the holdout systems? The Rigel Authority is still demanding tribute payments from their former colonies, but 3 of their primary resource worlds have simply stopped shipping. Without military enforcement, economic coercion becomes surprisingly ineffective. Thorne's smile held the satisfaction of watching bullies discover their victims could fight back. Admiral Chen's fleet is providing security guarantees for the transition periods. The transformation hadn't been without cost. The war's aftermath had left human space scarred and underpopulated, but it had also created something unprecedented in galactic history. A coalition based on voluntary cooperation rather than imposed submission. The Independent Trade Consortium now included 12 former hegemony colonies, 3 neutral systems, and humanity itself, all bound together by mutual defense agreements and fair trade protocols. Sir, incoming priority transmission from the Nexari Collective, announced Communications Officer Davies, now serving as Thorne's diplomatic aide. Chancellor Vorth wants to discuss their application for associate membership. Thorne accepted the transmission with bemused amazement. The Nexari had been among the most vocal supporters of the Final Solution Protocol for dealing with resistant species. Now they were requesting protection from the very coalition they had once sought to exterminate. Chancellor Vorth, this is Director Thorne. I understand you have concerns about recent developments in your territory. The alien leader's image flickered with the nervous energy of someone whose world had changed beyond recognition. Director Thorne, 12 of our tributary systems have declared economic independence in the past 6 months. Our production capacity has decreased by 37%. We require assistance in maintaining stability. What kind of assistance are you requesting? Trade agreements, security guarantees, perhaps membership in your consortium. The words tasted like victory in Thorne's mouth. The species that had voted for human genocide was now begging for human protection. Chancellor, membership in the Independent Trade Consortium requires accepting certain fundamental principles: fair labor practices, democratic representation for all member worlds, and absolutely no coercive economic policies. Are you prepared to accept these conditions? The pause lasted long enough for Thorne to count his heartbeats. When Vorth finally responded, his voice carried the defeat of someone whose empire was crumbling around him. We accept your conditions. President Kane's private transmission reached Thorne moments after the official negotiations concluded. Marcus, is it really over? Are we actually watching their empire collapse? Not collapse, Mr. President. Transform. The hegemony as a coercive force is finished, but the individual species are surviving by adapting to a new reality. Turns out most of them prefer prosperity to domination when given the choice. The changes had rippled across the galaxy with stunning speed. Within 2 years of Admiral Vex's defeat, 43 systems had achieved some form of independence from hegemony control. The alien coalition's attempts to maintain unity through increased taxation had only accelerated the process, as subject worlds discovered that they could simply refuse to pay tribute to masters who lacked the military strength to collect it. Former Admiral Vex himself had become a cautionary tale whispered in political circles across a dozen worlds. His defeat had triggered a purge within hegemony leadership that left the coalition leaderless and fragmented. Last reports placed him in exile on a mining colony, stripped of rank and authority, serving as a reminder that even empires could fall when they underestimated the cost of oppression. "Director Thorne, we have confirmation from the Proxima Independence Movement," reported Harrison. "The transition to self-governance is complete. They're requesting economic partnership agreements with the consortium." Each success felt like validation of the path they had chosen. The galaxy that had once cowered under hegemony rule was discovering that cooperation could be more profitable than coercion. Trade routes that had carried tribute for centuries now carried goods exchanged between equals. Systems that had known only economic extraction were learning to negotiate partnerships that benefited all participants. The final piece of the transformation came 5 years after the war's end, when the remaining hegemony core worlds formally requested mediation assistance for their own internal restructuring. The empire that had led through fear for 3 centuries had voluntarily asked humanity to help them create democratic institutions. Thorne stood in the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching cargo vessels from dozens of different worlds dock at humanity's newest spaceport. The smell of exotic spices from the Kepler system mixed with ozone from Centauri manufacturing plants and the clean scent of recycled air that had become the signature of interstellar commerce. Each ship represented a world that had chosen freedom over security, cooperation over subjugation. President Kane joined him at the viewport, both men taking a moment to absorb the magnitude of what they had accomplished. The galaxy spread before them no longer as a threat to be survived, but as a community to be nurtured. "Marcus, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had surrendered that first day?" Thorne considered the question while watching a Vorthan freighter carefully dock beside a human transport, their crews working together with the easy familiarity of partners rather than the suspicious tension of former enemies. "I think about those 12 million people who died in the bombardments, Mr. President. I think about what their sacrifice bought for every free world we see out there." "Any regrets?" "Only that it took a war to teach the galaxy something that should have been obvious from the beginning, that cooperation creates more wealth than exploitation, that voluntary partnership is stronger than forced submission." Thorne's reflection showed in the viewport, superimposed over the bustling spaceport that had once been humanity's last desperate fortress. "The hegemony ruled through fear for 3 centuries. We've built something better in 5 years. The final transmission of the day came from the hegemony's successor organization, now calling itself the Reformed Worlds Alliance. Their message was simple but historically significant: formal recognition of humanity's territorial sovereignty and a request for normalized diplomatic relations. The galaxy that had once threatened human extinction was now asking permission to coexist peacefully. The transformation was complete, the Empire's end marking not just humanity's survival, but the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization based on choice rather than coercion, prosperity rather than dominance. Standing in the observation deck of humanity's newest diplomatic station, Marcus Thorne watched the future unfold in real time, carried in the cargo holds of free traders and the hopes of liberated worlds. The galaxy had learned that vengeance was just the first lesson. The second, more important lesson was that justice could build what force could never maintain. The war was over. The peace had begun. If this story of humanity's economic warfare gave you chills, smash that subscribe button for more epic HFY tales. Now we want to hear from you. If you were Commander Thorne facing impossible odds, would you choose direct military confrontation or economic sabotage to defeat a superior enemy? Drop your battle strategy in the comments below. We read every single one, and your tactics might inspire our next story.